Hey everyone, Leo from Stagedge here, and I'm joined by Mike from our solutions team. And today we're going to talk about platforms, websites, and streaming as it pertains to virtual or hybrid events. So Mike, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So when we talk about platforms, and for us we're specifically referring to them in the use case of an event, right? Virtual, hybrid, what have you. I think let's start with an overall what exactly we're talking about. And at its core, we're talking about some sort of website or web destination, right? So let's talk through what we refer to as a platform and what the kind of different scales are of an event platform.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's really, like I said, it is really a website. In most cases, there are apps associated with it in many cases, but the foundation of any event platform is a website that you're driving folks to. So part of that requires obviously good registration, good email communication, drip campaigns, knowing who your invitees are, getting the message out to them, and then drawing them into this platform/website experience. And then once you get there, identifying who they are and understanding the metrics that you want to capture out of that, and then having a good experience while they arrive there.
What are the most common sort of expectations for a platform or a site for a virtual hybrid event these days?
There's client expectations. One is the registration process easy, right? We also try and drive solutions that are easy for the attendees to just navigate, for one. So we want to make sure that we're counseling our clients on, hey, make sure it's easy to come to. Make sure the communication's clear. Make sure when they come back to the event, first of all, they know when the event is, they can keep track of those events, and then they come back and it's easy to get back into. We see time and time again, it becomes this arduous process of trying to, hey, where do I go? And I have to click through 15 things to get to the content. I don't really understand, what's displayed here on the page. Where's the main event? We try to really focus in with our clients on make that easy, make it as frictionless as possible, make it clear to understand. Everyone's eyes when they arrive at a site will look at different things. So make sure you fill up the different areas of the space with good content that's understandable.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into, what are the kind of key elements to think about when building a platform, either from a service that you already have that might have some sort of template or from the ground up? What are the elements that clients should really consider and be aware of and plan properly?
Yeah, there's so many things to consider when it comes to platforms. Again, it could be very simple. It could be something you already have at your disposal. We see this a lot with folks trying to raise money, right? If they're a nonprofit, they're an organization that's trying to draw in funds, obviously we want to be close to the donation button. So we'll tailor the experience to those use cases to make sure that when the users come to watch the content, it's engaging for one, but also they can donate very easily. Second screen's available to donate. Maybe it's a text to give. So those are really critical things that we'll look at for a nonprofit for donations. But if it's an analyst meeting and it requires folks to come in and ask questions of a CEO or CFO during the financial season, that's important to really have a different experience, different platform. We have SEC regulations to consider. So you really have to tailor it based on the event, based on the needs of the client, based on the perception, based on the audience. There's lots of things to consider.
Yeah, which kind of goes back to our overarching theme that there's no silver bullet solution, right?
There really isn't.
There's no one-stop shop.
No, and that's why, yes, we've supported a number of different platforms, at least a dozen different platforms we've supported, but we also build out the experiences from the ground up. We have a lot of offerings that allow us to take the video experience or build out a templated experience or customize it from the ground up and really make it on brand for that event. Feels good, it looks good, and it's not just set into this platform that just doesn't feel right for the event.
Yep. You touched on my baby, which is the video experience, right? So I want to talk about that very important aspect of a platform when we're talking about virtual hybrid, right? What do we look for in a content delivery network, which is that kind of backbone for video delivery?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. It's probably the number one reason people leave these events, right? Is if poor video quality, poor audio quality, in the main piece of content, or any of the content for that matter, it's very frustrating to see buffering, or the audio's out of sync, or the quality is too low to read any of the text or graphics that comes up on screen. My team is constantly looking at events. We're constantly reviewing events, attending events as participants, looking at the good, the bad, the ugly. And they send me screen captures. I just got one this morning of a screen capture. Hey, the event platform looked great. And right smack in the middle is the video content that's illegible, right? What does that say about your event if you're not taking the time to focus on the video content? So content delivery network, we use best-in-class enterprise content delivery networks. Brightcove is at the top of our list for a number of reasons. They've been in the space for a long time. And we have great service level agreements to make sure we can ensure, uptime that is just at the highest possible level. We have a path in to get things fixed or understand if there is a problem. Those things are critical. It starts with great technology at the streaming side of things, content delivery network, and then that arriving at your platform. So we always try to vet out these platforms to make sure, hey, they might have popped up in the last year, 2 years, they might be newer to the space. Should we be relying on them for the video delivery? I would suggest no, and we'll vet that out and try and find a better path to bring you the best-in-class video delivery.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my seat, it's critical because, my team might spend 2 or 3 months ahead of the event creating all of this content. We might put together a 2-hour show at a very high quality, spend so much time in the editing process, making sure everything looks, sounds great. And for us to know that, okay, when I hand that off to the streaming team, it's going to come out the way that we delivered it. That's critical. And I think clients are the same way. We've spent so much time putting together this show, whether it's parts of the show or the whole show itself, if it's completely pre-recorded, and then to see it kind of stream out at a lower quality than they've been used to seeing it in the review process for several months can be really frustrating. So it's kind of a good security blanket for me to know that, first of all, when we're streaming, it's coming out of actual hardware here at our facility, right? We're not just uploading it to a site somewhere and saying, hey, play it back at this time. I know I've got at least one, if not 2 guys who are there monitoring the stream at the whole time. 100%. And on your end, kind of leading the streaming team as well, I know that you always like to say, like, if something happens, which it very rarely does with the tools we use, very, very rarely, you have a phone number to call and say, hey, is there a server down in, some part of the globe, and they know exactly, they can pinpoint exactly where the problem is and fix it. So,
and better yet, we actually have the engineers on the phone with us, right, during the events. So, we have plan A, B, and C, right? So everything has a backup to a backup to a backup, right? There isn't one single point of failure, and we really pride ourselves in that and making sure that this can't go down, right? So we minimize that risk for you. And that extends into the content delivery network world to make sure that the engineer's on the phone with us at all points of that process to identify issues. And it happens from time to time. Hey, there's an edge server that's out in this part of the world that just went down. All right, identify it, notify the stakeholders, right? And we're working on it, right? That real-time, instant information is critical.
Yeah. So in what ways can a platform be kind of a destination for all things related to an event? So we touched on, obviously, the registration that is very important. The show itself is very important. And then beyond that, this doesn't need, the URL doesn't need to go away, right? So I like to think of it similar to a customer journey where, there's kind of almost a funnel, right? And it's the same with an audience journey where you want to grab them initially and then bring them into the event, but then kind of nurture them, right? So let's talk a little bit about different ways that we develop platforms or destinations that live on beyond the event itself.
Yeah, and that's in the discovery process we find out about, hey, what's the intent here? Would you like this to live or have legs beyond the conclusion of the event? Or do you want pre-event content to be served up to the audience so they can get kind of jazzed up about the event? So some folks prefer that. Some folks just want to keep it relegated to the actual event days, and we turn it on and turn it off accordingly. But to your point, there's a lot of opportunity there leading up to the event to have initial landing pages. Hey, come to the event page, check it out. Here's some pre-event content, some video teasers, some messaging from your key stakeholders about the event. Certainly speaker bios and agendas are important for people to go and see, hey, this venue's real, this digital venue's real, and I'm excited about it. And then post-event for the on-demand content. Like I said earlier, some people just can't attend during the live event as much as we want them to. We understand that on-demand is critical for folks that want to go back and watch it. So make it easy for them to come do that so that your content can live on. And then taking that content and sharing it to other folks on the social teams to drive, again, if it's an open event, drive folks in to either register
back to that location.
or come back to that location, because that's where the venue is still alive. And we'll keep that up and running as long as they need.
Yeah, and I mean, you can go crazy and build out this, what initially was just an event destination, into a year-long marketing location, right?
Exactly.
So you can change your calls to action, you can link to other parts of your page, depending on, again, your goals. Are you looking to raise donation funds? Well, maybe you can continue having that donation button nearby if you're a nonprofit. But if you're a company that's selling a product or service, there's no reason to not drive people back to a version of the platform you created for the event if the content is relevant and if it helps drive a customer action that you're looking for.
Absolutely, and if it's outward facing and it's a consumer type event, your sales folks are going to want to know that, right? And so the metrics, if you're pumping it out to Eloqua or Salesforce or Marketo or HubSpot, that stuff is key. So it's beautiful to see, hey, a month after our event, these people came back and looked at our content. Great opportunity for the sales team to be notified of that and then come back in and engage with them because they're a warm lead again.
Yep. Great segue into data and analytics, right? So let's talk briefly about what sort of data can be gathered to track user engagement and what clients should be planning for, again, at the very initial stages of building out a platform for their event.
That should be the discussion up front. So anyone that manages your analytics within your organization, let's identify that. What tools you have at your disposal, whether it is some of the ones I just mentioned with Salesforce or Marketo or Eloqua, those are important to identify up front. Do you want this event to capture metrics that are pushed out to those systems? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. And we'll pivot accordingly to make sure that we give you the right tools to get that information in there. At the very least, we want to know who is invited to the event, right? Who's come to the event, how long they've engaged, and then what they've watched when they've arrived there. Where in the world are they? For the live content, for the on-demand content, what devices are they watching on? So all those things are critical to understand, wait, what's important for you to capture? Let's make sure we're capturing it. Let's test all that in advance. And then you get nice reports that you can bring to your stakeholders after the event and see, show them how successful the event was.
Yeah, and it runs the gamut. I mean, like you said previously, we have clients that come to us with platforms they've invested in, and that's totally fine. We can work within them. Those might capture certain metrics, but oftentimes clients will want to capture another metric. And for us, having a whole kind of suite of tools available, while it may seem to generate sort of a disparate set of data, so video metrics might be a little different from registration and being on the time on the site, if that's how it's set up. Ideally, you have a one-stop shop for all of it, but it's better to capture more and analyze it later with a team that understands what is being captured versus not getting it, not planning for it, and then suddenly at the end of an event going, hey, how many people watched this particular piece of content?
Absolutely.
Or how many people registered and then were on the site and you hadn't set up at least a way to facilitate that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And in the hybrid world, it's even more important, right? Because you're going to want to track all the things that you would have normally tracked in the pre-COVID world, but then you're still going to have the virtual components. So making sure that your systems, again, there's lots of systems out there, making sure they're doing it for both virtual and hybrid in the same way or similar ways. You're able to kind of keep all that information contained.
Yeah. So how do we as a company, with our clients approach something as important as security and access across these platforms we're building?
Yeah, so there's a wide range of events that are maybe open to the public, and then there are varying degrees of security that are required for these types of events. We take security and compliance very seriously. So the tools that we bring to the table we know that we're going to have to be going through SAS assessments and compliance reviews, and so we take that very seriously and look deep into these platforms we're bringing to the table to make sure they can pass those SAS reviews when required. But it is a critical thing for people to understand, really, hey, where is your content going? Where is it living? How is it getting there? And we help you walk through that with your security and compliance teams to make sure that it's really understood where everything lives.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Again, being on many calls with you, very early in the process, you will always say, "Can we get someone from your IT department on the phone?"
Right
and that's
away.
not something that people think they're going to have to deal with initially, but it's critical, right?
It's critical, and again, looping in all the stakeholders from those groups is key. Security, compliance, IT, sometimes they're linked, sometimes they're not directly linked, so bring everybody in. And that goes for all areas of the company. Get communications in, get marketing in. The events team should be drawing these folks in if that's who you're engaged with, to make sure we have a good cross-section there, and there aren't any last-minute gotchas that are going to cause a little bit of a problem in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you see, what are you most excited about in the future for how platforms or delivery of content can develop coming up in the next few months as they pertain to, let's just say, hybrid events? Let's be honest.
Sure, yeah.
Hybrid is the future. There still might be some virtual. There's definitely going to be plenty of live, but there's always going to be that component which will need a platform. So what are some of the things you're looking forward to seeing kind of flower over the next few months?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see how teams are going to be able to bring people into this physical environment, bring the digital attendees in, have them part of the event, feel part of the event, and have a great run of show that caters to those two audiences. I think there's a time and a place for that digital audience to be there with the in-room audience during certain parts of the event, but other times we're going to need to give them different content and something different to watch at home when your in-person folks are doing something different. So I'm really excited about how we're going to navigate that with great storytelling, great hosts and MCs, great video content, all sorts of interstitial content to make sure that we cover all those different gaps.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, all of that ties into everything we've been talking about today, from the registration process all the way through to the user experience, and making sure that you know exactly what your audience should be experiencing, regardless of whether they're in person with you at home or a mix of both at certain times. So, Mike, thanks so much for joining us. That was a great conversation, and thank you for watching.